My name is Norm Volsky, your host, and this is the Digital Health Heavyweights podcast.
Thanks, Norm. It's an honor to be here, and it's been fun to work with you over the years.
Hello, and welcome to the Digital Health Heavyweights podcast with your host, Norm Volsky. And today we are thrilled to be joined by Ryan Coplon. Ryan, welcome to the pod.
Man, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. So, for all of our viewers and listeners that are not as familiar with Ryan, he is the founder and CEO of Health Wallet. And for those not familiar with Health Wallet is simplifying the way benefits are accessed by consolidating all concierge medical services into one complete mobile healthcare experience. Previously, Ryan was a partner and president of risk strategy at Echelon Advisors, which was sold to Acrisure, focusing on risk finance optimization. Prior to that, he was in risk finance strategy at SK&P Insurance Services. Ryan got his business management degree from Texas State University and also got an international business degree at Eastern China Normal University. So really excited to have Ryan on the pod, talk all about healthcare and talk about the incredible work your team is doing at Health Wallet. So welcome, and can't wait to dive in.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks.
Great. I love it. So what inspired you to get into healthcare after being in risk finance strategy?
Well, our consulting firm, if you had to reduce it to what we did, we were a commercial insurance consultant, but ultimately we built strategies to find the optimal point of self-funding and risk appetite. And so we built some processes and some, and we'll call them programs that we took organizations through that helped them to, ultimately have a little bit more control over their benefit plan and spend and just the infrastructure to pull some levers. But really, we got into healthcare by way of doing self-funded employee benefits because that's really where the crossroads between employee benefits and healthcare exists.
It is.
And so naturally, we sort of segued into being sort of in population healthcare management more so than annual insurance procurement. And a long, bumpy road, here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny. Everyone in the industry definitely understands that benefits are always the number two cost item for enterprise employers. When you ask people outside the industry, they're like, oh, well, salaries have to be one, but like, is real estate and like their office space number two, or is their
Right.
advertising budget, or, they'll come up with all these guesses, and it's like, no, it's employee benefits. And the more they think about it, they're like, oh, that makes sense. But, it just reminds people how big of an issue it is. So walk us through your time at Echelon Advisors. What did you do there, and what was some of your main accomplishments that you're most proud of?
Well, so, at the time I was running strategy on the property and casualty, which we call the risk strategy side of the business.
Yeah.
And this was sort of in the environment when the fully insured cost trajectory on the benefits side was just going like this. And so as a byproduct of that, we really started getting into strategies like captives and purchasing consortiums and things that would bring the benefits of self-funding way down market on the employee benefits side. That ended up being, our fastest growing, we'll call it line of business, for lack of a better way to describe it. And so at the time, we built one of the fastest growing employer owned or member owned captives in 2013, 14,
Yeah.
deconstructing traditional health plans, rebuilding them with all the conference buzzwords. Ultimately, I mean, in hindsight, I would say that my biggest accomplishment there was really incubating Health Wallet out of our self-funded health plans and realizing that, we could touch a lot larger percentage of the total population if I decided to focus my professional efforts on sort of the benefits navigation and aggregation side of the house instead of just group to group consulting. And so in hindsight, it's certainly the vertical integration that incubated my day job out of my last one.
Yeah, no, I know that a lot of companies start from people who are consultants that want to do what they're doing consulting for at scale. I know that Carum Health was founded that way, where like the founders of Carum were bundled payment consultants, And then they thought, you know what, we can help a hell of a lot more people access high quality care at lower cost if we built a company, as opposed to just doing it piecemeal. So it sounds like you had a pretty similar origin story, which I love. Just walk us through just general challenges of like creating your own captive in 2013, 2014, and although you ultimately succeeded, what were some of the tough times during that growth?
Well, I mean, captives and just the concept of self-funding benefits was not nearly as in vogue as it is today. And it was, I would say, a little non-traditional.
Hmm.
And the insurance and brokerage model historically has been very antiquated and archaic and sort of stuck in its way and process. And so, we were kind of young in the game too at the time. When we started Echelon, I was 25, I think. And so we were certainly fresh blood in the benefits consulting business, which, it creates probably a natural barrier to coming into an employer group that's been buying, insurance from the same folks for longer than we've been alive.
Yeah.
And then telling them something completely different than, what they're traditionally accustomed to. So, we really specialized ultimately in the sort of fully insured to self-funded conversion.
Hmm.
And that in itself is inherently a multi-layered discussion and a little bit of blind faith. So I'd say that was probably the biggest hurdle at the time anyway.
Yeah, makes sense. So walk us through a little bit more of what inspired you, to co-found Health Wallet, uh, of all the experiences you had at Echelon.
Yeah. So Health Wallet ultimately came out of a problem that we experience in the business day to day. So we were building and, architecting self-funded health plans, deconstructing them, rebuilding them with all the cool, shiny new toys. And what we ultimately realized is when we'd go out to quarterly stewardship meetings or utilization review meetings, we didn't like what we saw on the way when we realized that many of these point solutions were going inherently undownloaded or underutilized, and that was contributing to quite a bit of we'll call it planned spend waste.
Hmm.
And that was just really a byproduct of the ineffective communication strategy and then the fragmented member experience. And so I sort of had an aha moment and decided to step outside the firm and partner with my co-founder who owned a mobile app development firm at the time. Got a little consulting from my father, who's the last 50-year IBMer left. He's the CTO of digital. And we rolled out first iteration of Health Wallet, which very much at its core was just the aggregation and engagement chassis. Sort of, we'll call it the benefit hub, for lack of a better way to describe it at the time. And after kicking it back and forth with our groups for the greater majority of a year or two, we realized that there was just a large market and a much bigger addressable issue that many of our peers in the space had, because we also, we knew a lot of peers in the space, and we were all architecting great self-funded health plans and watching them perform like regular health plans because we were just not communicating effectively to the average health plan member.
Yeah, I love it. Benefits can be very confusing, not only for the employees, but the employers, and the benefits teams. How does Health Wallet simplify things, for all of those stakeholders?
Yeah, so I mean, the most obvious is the member, of course, but
Yeah.
as a byproduct of that, we're relinquishing high volume, low complexity service burden. So member facing service units that we kind of work collaboratively with or alongside with are seeing much higher capacity for focusing on the real, meat and potatoes instead of just the table stakes and the average health plan member inquiry. And from the consultant's purview, being a former one myself, and this is still true for the TPAs as well, they're bringing solutions, and as technology and all of this stuff becomes more automated, I don't want to say that they're kind of becoming commoditized, but they're sort of becoming commoditized. And so laying the chassis is like a prerequisite, and then driving the utilization of all the things that you brought to the party as a byproduct of you being the TPA or the consultant is really where they see a lot of value in it, because we just help kind of perpetuate the narrative that they brought.
Yeah. Approximately how many smaller employers that wouldn't traditionally self-insure have you helped transition to self-insured over the years?
Well, our self-funded journey was doing on the from the consulting side anyway was a good probably 6 years or so, and all things considered, across the board, hundreds of groups. Now, to my earlier point, Health Wallet is getting close to 2,000 groups,
Mhm.
and so we've been able to
How many total covered lives, give or take?
mid hundred thousands with in primaries
It's a
with about a
significant
what's that?
population.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
significant population.
Well, and some of our we'll call them partners, for lack of a better way to describe them all collectively, are sort of like program style business, like mech plans and
Uh-huh.
limited medical plans, or captives, or we call them branded program business. So that's very
Hmm.
cheeseburger, cheeseburger, cheeseburger. So they might implement us kind of at the plan level across the board,
Yeah.
instead of sort of like group to group to group, which we do some of, but it's mostly kind of program self-funded stuff.
If you had to approximate, how much total dollars do you think you've saved to all the groups, you've
Man.
helped over the years?
I don't know, man. Honestly, I would be making it up if I tried to guess. But here's the inevitable reality: is we have some case studies to show this too. That because there's some large national employer groups that are customers of ours that had the exact same, well, for lack of a better way to describe them, we'll call them point solution ecosystem
Hmm.
before us and after us. With us being the only difference between last year and this year, and we've driven so much more utilization of the services. And those individual services really are the ones that have all the ROI quantification and the plan redirection and the this and the that. But as a byproduct of unawareness, they just go underutilized. And so, I mean, you know that better than anybody. So we've certainly impacted awareness, engagement, utilization, in a way that people feel is meaningful and keep us around.
Yeah. So outside of like digital health vendor engagement, what other common issues does Health Wallet solve for? Where if there's, a CEO or a president of a small growing business or even a benefits leader of a business growing very quickly that's thinking about self-insuring, just walk the group that's listening and viewing through like, hey, if you're seeing these things and these issues, you could solve all of them or most of them by working with us.
I mean, if I had to zoom way out, really, it's relinquishing unnecessary service burden, which is an overly general way to describe benefits advocacy, care navigation. Where's my ID card? Is my doctor in network? I mean, you take a percentage of total that the average sort of member-facing service unit interacts, or the instances in which they interact with a member. A high percentage of them are low leverage environments. So in a self-funded world, we're helping all of the stuff that's been implemented be utilized to its full capacity, or at a minimum, at least its awareness, anyway. Um, but our platform, we operate under the guise of a member experience platform, but it's really an engagement chassis by design. And so, that's sort of eyes of the beholder, but a lot of, small and medium-sized businesses use our platform and our infrastructure to engage their own internal populations however they see fit, because we give them the ability to, from what we call our admin console, access our engagement hub. And that's an instrument that they can play however they like.
Yeah, I love it. The way I see it is it's a digital front door,
Exactly.
for the employee to interact, with their benefits offering and know, what's covered and, what services are available within their health plan, which is really, really obviously very valuable and, employees love it. So how does Health Wallet use, this cutting edge technology to enhance engagement, benefits communication, and partner integrations? Because I would say 98% of digital health companies struggle to get engagement. You help them do that. Like, what are you guys doing that's really unique?
Well, and I mean this in jest, of course, but we had an epiphany a few years ago, and we say around the coffee machine that everybody has a brother-in-law at a virtual care company. And
Yeah.
so what that means in our world practically is I've hired dedicated engineers that do nothing but integrate third-party solutions by the request of the folks that we work with, and that's
Yep.
accumulated into four-figure integration volume. and
Yeah.
that's all sorts of different things. But ultimately, putting it all in one spot is a fundamental prerequisite to what we do. In
Okay.
using the engagement chassis is really where the rubber meets the road, and the new age technology, the two coolest tricks these days, really leveraging the convenience of a mobile device, is geofencing based engagements. In some scenarios, draw geo perimeters around places where we want any member who breaks that with their mobile phone to know this at that time. Or another one is, obviously AI's buzzword bingo number one. So we built a member experience solution that's using the same underlying framework that most advocacy and concierge organizations use, effectively creating a digital advocate. Number one, helping the member, but also supporting the advocacy organizations because it offloads a lot of what might end up burning up their phones.
Hmm.
So I'd say that those two are really the coolest. But it's funny because those like health plans were the last frontier to go paperless. I mean, we have a mech plan that's 100,000
I'm
life TPA.
convinced the insurance companies also own the lumber companies.
Yeah,
It's the
or
only
the fax machine
explanation that makes
companies, either
sense.
way.
Yeah, one of the two.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's just it's funny. I mean, we had a mech plan client that's a 100,000 life mech plan, and they went digital with fulfillment, kind of in collaboration with us, unless the member specifically requests physical upon enrollment. And you're talking 50 to 100 grand a month in print and mail, and that's a mech plan. So there's only a handful of EOB instances. Extrapolate that into a major medical environment, and it's material.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Tell us about Health Wallet's Benny AI bot. AI is all the rage, and I want to hear how you guys are leveraging it.
Yeah. So AI is, like I said, buzzword bingo number one, but it's also scary and confusing to most folks that don't understand it, particularly if you're the stakeholder that cares about what solutions are articulating to your plan members, right? And so there's this large ether sphere of AI and generative AI and whatever else. And so what we decided to do is kind of leverage the use of generative and large language model, but in a practical way that's digestible to the average health plan consultant or administrator. And so after kicking the tires with a bunch of them for a while, what we decided to do is build a member experience chatbot solution that runs on the same underlying knowledge base that most advocacy firms use. So they know where the knowledge base comes from. It's just supporting at scale the same service that they're offering. And that's generally SPD, SBC, benefit guide, ID card proof, special rules kit, accumulators, whatever. But it's a it's a digital navigation solution is what it is.
I love it. How does your pricing compare to like digital navigation at the jumbo level, like the transparent accolades, the included healths, the quantums,
Yeah.
health joys of the world?
We're 20 cents on the dollar, generally speaking. And I think, and I'm not picking on any one of them in particular, but one thing that's probably unique about us that's not the case with most of them is we built this business 100% ourselves and took on no capital or any funding of any kind. And what that translates to really is we're just all operators, and we don't have the business partners on the cap table that are interested in the next letter of the alphabet with a preferred liquidation right and a pricing committee we're a SaaS platform at the end of the day, and we're built, very intentionally to be as scalable and automated as possible. If we do something manual once, we automate it, if possible, and that's just afforded us the luxury of operating at a much lower operating cost, still in a sustainable way than some of the folks that we see, you know, out in the business.
I love it. What are some of your earlier customers that have like stayed with you for many years? What enhancements to the product have they seen over the last 5
Man,
plus years?
yeah. So, well, obviously there's the TPA sort of rung on the ladder, and then all the groups below that. We've lost groups as a byproduct of them losing groups, but at the TPA level, or I use the term TPA, I mean TPA payer, et cetera. Those are really in our eyes kind of our customer, I guess. We've had very little attrition from even from the jump. I mean, most of our TPA partners that were there day one are still around in some
That's fantastic.
capacity or
It means
another.
you're doing great work and you're staying ahead of the curve and you're continuing to innovate and, driving new solutions like the AI bot and others.
Well, and so admittedly, we and keep in mind, I as a benefits guy, in a previous lifetime, I sort of had conference fatigue a little. So we've been very, I'll say, function over form in the sense that our platform has iterated thousands and thousands of times specifically because we work very closely in collaboration with the people that we're working with. So they come to us all the time. They're like, "Hey, we got this operational member-facing bottleneck or whatever." And because we have such development agility, we can solve that problem very quickly. But our platform is so flexible and modular that you could set two member experiences next to one another and they would be functionally unrecognizable.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I guess the short answer to that question is we perpetually reiterate in collaboration with the folks that we work with, and that's because we know it's relevant to them and to us. Our core business function or philosophy is maintaining the relevance of the member experience and
Yeah.
being able to support the people whose members those are is a solid strategy for us.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of companies out there that want to tell the customer base and their prospects like what they should want
Right.
versus what they actually want. It's
Yeah, yeah,
usually
yeah.
the smarter way to go. So from discounts on prescriptions, video chats with doctors, insurance plan clarifications, unlimited telemedicine, improving communication about benefits, a lot of different services. Walk us through just like how this got so broad, over the period of time you've grown it.
Well, and that was the solution set from day one.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, we have thousands of third-party integrations,
Yeah.
and it's a byproduct of our experience in the market. So I have curated organizations and vendor partners that I think are best in class with some advantages for integrating into our environment in terms of just like speed of deployment and aggregated member experiences and those sort of things. But the brother-in-law virtual care comment is sort of the answer to the question. I mean, I hired an engineer that does nothing but integrate things by request. And so, with that being his core day job, we've really been able to do that with some velocity.
Hmm.
And and it's, I guess it's inevitably just a byproduct of how the market has changed, when there's all these great point solutions. I mean, some call it solution fatigue, but
Which ones do you think are actually driving value and that your customers tend to like? Any that you'd call out as like the handful of companies in the vendor world that are, building and growing a great reputation?
not by name at the expense of the others. But yeah, I mean, I'd say that the virtual care continuum obviously has its place. You got to kind of play with the funding mechanism because capitated versus fee for service with an inverse relationship with each other. If you can find the optimal point in that, you're not really wasting money. The gravitation from urgent, acute virtual care, everybody's original definition of telehealth, which is next doc up, here's a Z-Pack. It's gravitated much more towards something that has a little bit more care continuity. The scope of things they can provide is much broader. So I feel like if you layer solutions the right way in what we call like a solution stack, and there's some sort of symbiotic relationship between the two in terms of how you handle maybe like from a virtual care organization that how they're handling pre-auth or referral, maybe to like put the clamps down and it has to go to, care navigation or medical management or whoever. With the prevalence of good solutions, there's always bad. And so what we've ultimately realized is even the best ones still perpetuate the problem that we're setting out to solve, which is the
Yeah.
member experience fragmentation issue. So
Yeah.
we have a lot of, and that's why I'm careful with who I say and who I don't. but we have many brand name recognizable point solution vendors that have come to us, sort of strategically integrated their solution in ours and co-market towards TPAs because
Yeah.
they recognize that they're in an underutilization risk position and they want to stay around. So wrapping their solution around all the other things is a solid play.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Company's grown quite a bit. How many employees do you have these days
We have
over at?
14 now. That's a byproduct of most of our business development being what we'll call like external. I've grown the business mostly through what we call 1 degree of trusted separation away from the people we need to meet, because I know how difficult TPAs' lives are and self-funded
Mhm.
health plans. And if you don't know self-funded health plans well, best of luck calling on them. So, the bird dogs are really how we hunt. But I was very fortunate when I started this business to start it with my co-founder who had a development team that had worked together already on several projects before.
That's can't
So
beat that.
yeah, built-in market day one with our customers and dev team that hit the ground running with the New Jersey made things a lot easier for us, and we had way less burn than your average software startup.
Yeah.
And we've just been reiterating and reiterating and reiterating ever since. And like I said, I was very fortunate to start the business when I did, not only because I had my co-founder who, admittedly, I knew enough about tech to kind of like start the business, but they keep me out of that side of the house as much as possible. But
Well, divide and conquer. I like it.
yeah, but my dad, he's started at IBM in college throwing computers out of buildings, and now he's the CTO of their digital strategy. And
What was the title for that job?
I don't know, man, but I guarantee it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Um, so he's seen the entire evolution of just how to build software infrastructure. And so the punchline being we were right at the time when headless, serverless, and completely cloud was feasible. And that puts us in a very scalable and agile environment.
Gotcha. I forget even which company developed and built it, but I remember when I was younger, there used to be TV commercials for like the workbook, and it like kind of like snapped together like a toolbox,
Yeah,
and like you could throw it out of your truck, you could drive over it, and then pop it open, and it still works.
yeah,
So, kind of reminds me of that a little bit.
yeah,
So, you've grown a company with not that many employees. Like for the amount of revenue you guys do, 14 is not a lot. You mentioned you use a lot of automation whenever possible, but what are your hiring philosophies? Like I feel your group probably gets more out of 14 people than most. Like what are your hiring philosophies and leadership philosophies that allows your very lean team to get a lot done and be uber productive?
give them the full autonomy to do their job, whether I think I know how to do their job or not, because oftentimes I'm wrong because I'm not in the trenches.
Hmm.
So anybody that I've hired at this organization would vouch for the fact that I told them we're like this. I play short, you play second, you play third.
Yeah.
There's no hierarchy in our world because I couldn't get anywhere close to where we are right now if I tried to manage them in any way other than giving them the autonomy to do what they do. Now, that takes a little bit of blind trust, but it also takes hiring the right folks.
Yeah.
I can't take the credit for that because I've been very lucky.
Hmm.
Um, I'm very fortunate to have a few of folks in our organization just kind of fall in my lap. And
Yeah, but they had to believe in you and you had to interview them and convince them to join. So
yeah,
there's skill in that. I don't want you to sell yourself short.
well, it's the human side of things for me, and I feel like if we had to really reduce it to like two sort of character profiles, there's micro and then macro, and I am macro. I'm not micro. I look at my computer for about 30 minutes a day and still go cross-eyed, and so where my limitations, arise, there are folks in my organization that run circles around me, and they would prefer to do that instead of do stuff like I do. And so it's really because we're sort of all marching towards the same goal. And I mean, I think the nuts and bolts of it, honestly, are everybody in our organization is on an upside comp deal, meaning that they have an interest in the participate or in participating in the health of the business, not just from their employees their employee purview. They look at it generally in the same way I do because it directly impacts their life.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, you got to align incentives. And again, I've been in the talent game for a long time
Yeah, you know
now.
best.
I think, well, I don't know about that, but I do think I know more than a lot of folks just because I do it all day. But what I think you kind of scratch the surface on that I think is a great hiring principle, don't hire people you think you have to look over their shoulder. And if you do, I'd argue you shouldn't do it. And if you're convinced you are going to do it anyway, I'd really look yourself in the mirror and ask, well, why do you have to look over their shoulder? Is it because of them or is it because of you?
Right.
And you're not always going to like the true answer, the truth serum answer, but a lot of being able to scale something as an executive and a founder is being willing and able to let go
Oh
and
yeah,
delegate
no
and
question.
push things off. I think I had to do it myself as like this recruiting business has scaled and now I'm in a venture and now there's even more things to do and more to delegate. And the thing you got to think of as a business leader is even if my direct reports make the occasional mistake that I wouldn't have made, if that's like your biggest fear, right? You got to think in all the time they're doing things right and taking that off your plate, how much are you getting done in all that time you're saving?
100%. I
So
mean,
you can focus on other things. And like I would argue, if you have the ability to kind of deal well in ambiguity and work on new projects that maybe you've never worked on before, I would always say like the benefits will outweigh the costs
no question.
100%. If you just sprint and focus on your tasks and let, your direct reports and other people within the company focus on theirs, yes, the occasional mistake will be made, but the aggregate of everyone running full speed, rowing in the same direction, there's nothing that can duplicate that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I guess a fundamental prerequisite to me, I never drew the org chart. The org chart developed by itself, and I still try to keep it like this, but
Hmm.
the reality is it's turned into what it has because I've made hires that are increasing my capacity for highest value use of my time. And I say that only because, I said earlier, if you don't know self-funded plans, good luck selling to them.
Yeah.
It really needs to be me talking to them, and at
And
least first
continuing to
knock.
educate yourself. Because, like, just because you know the market 5 years ago doesn't mean you know it today if you're not continuing to learn
Definitely.
and know what's out there.
Well, and I've been very fortunate transitioning from like consulting role where we touched groups to software role where we touched plans. So now I
Yeah.
have a much broader view of just kind of how the market's playing out and who's doing what and what's out there and so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, from running an insurance firm before to running a software business now, this is so much more fun. I mean, I have way more time because the implementation and service burden is nothing compared to what it used to be per 10,000 member belly buttons. So, like I said before, if we do something manually, we try to automate it.
Yeah. I love it. Smart way to grow a business. What have been the milestones and the achievements since building Health Wallet that you're most proud of?
Well, it's a little bit of a family business. My mom, she works with me. She's my CFO. She could teach a master class in teetering the precipice between business partner and mom.
Okay.
Um, but bringing her along with me has been fun. I mean, I haven't brought her along with me, but like working and building something alongside her has enhanced the quality of both of our lives. So that's been really cool.
Awesome.
Uh, I'm
It
gonna
is
say
good when the
something.
CFO can tell the CEO no, and I'm pretty sure mothers are really good at telling their kids no.
Like I said, she could teach a master class. Um, so I'm not sure if I should say it, but I'm gonna say it anyway. One of the One of the things that we were most proud of, I think, was when we ran a process 2 years ago. Yeah, 2-ish years ago. We were in a great spot. Other folks just in the macroeconomic environment weren't so much in a great spot. So after not formally hiring a banker, but sort of quasi hiring a banker and just kind of dipping our toe in the water and seeing what it looks like and all that, the feedback from the private equity firms was that we were sort of a statistical anomaly in the sense that we took on no capital. We've grown to a revenue per human that's sort of in
Yeah.
its own, it's in its own quadrant at least. And
Yeah.
I looked at, after we went through it all, we looked across the table from each other and said, we have so much meat on the bone left. So after we ran the process, we punted and we were just fortunate. Oh, and I'm not beating my chest, man. Half of it's luck, if not more, but it felt good to not have to do it.
Yeah. I love it. And ultimately, like private equity, to dilute it down to its most elemental being, is it's people who are operators who look at businesses and say, you know what, we could squeeze more juice out of that
No
than
question.
the people running it right now.
Yep.
And guess what deals they don't like doing when they evaluate a business and they're like, I don't know how much better we could run it ourselves. So sometimes the best businesses are ones that private equity, just feels like, hey, we're not going to bring that much incremental value. If we own the asset, then why do the deal to begin
And
with?
and in our world, I've said this more than I should already, but if you don't know self-funded health plans,
Yeah.
it's good luck selling to them. I say that because we
And
had a
that's my thought of like, look, Amazon, the company who has more resources than any company in the world, tried to tackle digital health, Amazon Care, and they fell flat on their face. And it's not because they're not the smartest company in the world and they don't have the most capable people and the bankroll, everything, but they aren't
they
the
don't know the
benefits.
business.
They never were. So when they entered the market, they had every advantage in the world except for the biggest one.
Yep. Experience. Yeah, so when we ran that process, we had a prerequisite that they had to be a strategic because we've been able to fund our own growth. And so, I mean this with all due respect, of course, but we did not need any dumb money. We were exclusively interested in, maybe people that owned what would be large prospects of ours or some maybe like tuck up on a larger platform type of deal. And then I realized I had an aha moment. The standard SaaS playbook in terms of funding and just all of that is like, I saw something hilarious on LinkedIn the other day, and it's just showing the difference in the life between 100% of a $10 million business versus 5% of a $100 million business, and what the exit really does for the quality of your life and what the quality of your life looks like between you used to own it and now you don't, just in terms of, your responsibility to the people who invested in you, which is, obviously very important, but I think it reduces your ability to pivot because you put your KPIs in the sand, or you sort of ink them. And if you realize, because you know in your gut that you need to pivot because you know your market, it's you don't have the stroke to do that yourself, right, in a way that might not impact your livelihood. And so we're just happy to be in a position where we've held on to as much of it as we have for as long as we
Love
have.
it.
And that's, we've probably almost failed 3 or 4 times, and if we didn't do it the way that we did it and run it like a real business and not put as much money on the street as we can and wait for series A, B, C in the finale, then who knows what we'd be doing these days.
Yeah, well, I very much respect your intestinal fortitude and that like you went through the process and you had the ability to walk away before it was too late. You mentioned there's a lot of meat on the bone, so like what does the next 5 years look like at Health Wallet? What do we have to look forward to?
Well, very fortunately for us, the benefits of self-funding keep coming down market and are becoming much more prevalent. It's almost to the point to where you better know it if you're a consultant at this point or you're on borrowed time. And so what that's doing is perpetuating the problem that we solve, which is member experience fragmentation. So next 5 years, we'll have reiterated another 1,000 times, more than likely. We have a ton of growth coming. this year, which we're excited about. I'm probably going to add some bodies this year in a tactful way. But, I think this time finally, here's what happens all the time. Somebody finds out about us. We go through the process initially, give them our background, give them a demo of our capabilities and solutions, and they go, "Wow, we had no idea you're so far along. How have we never heard of you?" And it's because we've been function over form. I've been dealing with my customers exclusively instead of standing at conferences and getting big booths and doing the Brooks Brothers and a beer, right? And so
Mhm.
now um, I've started to bring on some resources that are going to help us maybe do that, because we should. And so I have a feeling we'll see a lot more folks at the conferences coming up, but we're going to try and at least keep it
Don't
to the.
sound so excited about it, bud.
I'm thrilled. Okay. Um, but it's a necessary part of the deal. And so I think that that's a long-winded way of saying we're gonna pour gas on the industry level awareness.
I love it. And this podcast will help.
Yeah,
So excited
thanks.
for that. And what are you excited to see in the benefits area over the next 5 years? Like, what innovations, what changes are you looking forward to seeing?
Well, I think that we're starting to see that the tide's going out, and we're gonna see who has their pants down in health plan in the macro, right? And we're not going to pick on anybody in particular, but we'll say categorically, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in pharmacy, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with payer-owned provider groups because they're most certainly eating their own dog food. Um,
Yep,
what I really hope just the regulators decide to do is actually maybe enforce or put some penalty around the payers not intentionally dragging their feet on machine readable files
yep,
because right now, with no real recourse or no fear of something, it's in their financial interest to not do it or to do it
of
as slow as
course.
possible. So I think that those things, in addition to all these lawsuits you see where the employees are suing the employer for fiduciary
Yep.
responsibility,
I think we
that's
are
common.
entering a new era of
Sure.
fiduciary duty, and I believe that people can't be just burying their head in the sand and they can't just say, well, this is my only function and this is what I'm focused on and I'm just very tunnel vision in my like very specific niche. If there is options out there for employers to save money or improve clinical quality or improve clinical access, and the vendors, the brokers, the consultants are not waving their hands saying, hey, there's other things you need to know about that I'm aware of, and here's what they are. I think that, the day of kind of pleading ignorance and being like, well, that's not really like my responsibility, so I'm not gonna, help there. Those days are gone. And I believe on the vendor side, unless you can show a clear ROI, ideally guarantee an ROI in year one, go fully at risk on your deals, fully utilization based pricing, days of PEPM are over. I think that's what we're going to see in these next
Probably
handful of
so.
years. And we're going to see a lot of companies wash out. And, there's going to be a handful that really have been customer centric and product centric and obsessed with saving money for their clients that are gonna, win the day and be the most not only successful digital health companies, but the ones that last, the ones that stick around,
I
the ones
think
that are built for the long term.
I think in the employee benefits world, the days of hunt, fish, and write your insurance are dwindling.
Yeah.
There's some fresh blood coming in, and traditionally you've been sort of the insurance brokerage model, the benefits brokerage model has been beholden to the payer community. They're really sellers agents operating under the guise of buyers agents. And so now, you know, even down to 50 employee lives, you can make data not only available but actionable
Yep.
and pull levers that, the jumbo payers will never let you pull.
Yeah.
And so we'll see. But I think
You
we're headed in
just
the right
need
direction.
benefits leaders to have the gumption to displace an insurance, health carrier or a big, large PBM and see some major cost savings where others, will follow and will try some things that were, too scary, quote unquote, in years past. I do ask everyone who comes on the podcast, how do you practice what you preach? Your business is in healthcare, but we're also all humans and we need to live healthcare, to be able to have the longest life expectancy we can. So how in a very stressful job, running a fast growing company, do you reduce stress and find time to exercise?
Prioritize it. I mean, it's just as important as anything else on my calendar every day. I mean, admittedly, I've always tried to like eat clean and played sports, worked out and did all this stuff and doing that and then, maintaining travel and work and wife and, all those things is a really delicate balance. There's been
Hmm.
two things predominantly for me that's made it easier for me. First, I've been intermittent fasting for 4 years now. And so
Yeah.
instead
So
of
what time do you start or what time do you end that
I
creates the
simplify it.
one?
Yeah, I don't try to hang around the clock too much.
Yep.
I wake up and it's pretty much coffee. Now my vice is I still haven't kicked the cream because there's a part of me that like,
Oh,
I'm
it's
like, dude, it, I still
can't be
gotta enjoy it a
perfect.
little.
Yeah.
But I mean, oftentimes 3 p.m., 4 p.m. and that's just it's just made me so much healthier, honestly, because my body's not digesting all day. It's doing what it's designed to do. Um,
Yeah, I started drinking caffeine in the morning and kind of waiting till like first meal be like 11 to 1, somewhere in there. And it, like my body just like functions better and healthier weight and you just feel better.
and one thing that's helped me too is I used to work out for about an hour and a half every day,
Yep.
and now I've broken it up into 2:45s,
Nice.
and it's just, you know, it's easier to accommodate, really. I mean,
Yeah.
and finding things that I enjoy doing to stay active. Like, I mean, clearly pickleball's becoming a thing these days, and so
Yep.
I play a lot of that, play a lot of racquetball. I find myself pushing myself well beyond what I would on a treadmill when my buddy's trying to beat me in something,
Yeah, no, it's the ultimate motivator. You do
for
not
sure.
want to lose to your friends, that's for sure. And then the last thing is I think what we put into our bodies, really important. So I guess my last question is any healthy recipes or snack ideas that you use, daily, weekly, monthly that might inspire someone to try something new?
Well, yeah, you know what inspired me to try something new? Somebody as healthy and and strong as somebody like Joey Bosa for the Niners, right? I
Yep.
listened to a podcast of his a year or two ago, or one that he was on or something,
Yeah, those
and
Bosa brothers, they are built
Diesel,
like they're
man.
really strong, but they're also like no fat. Like
Well,
they're
he
just
doesn't eat carbs
muscular.
anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, and I couldn't fathom that, before. And my wife and I have really transitioned towards, I don't want to call it the carnivore diet, but dangerously
Yeah.
close.
All
At
right.
least like heavy concentration on protein, macros, and fat macros in lieu
Mhm.
of carbs. And I realize now I go to lunch with a customer or something, eat some carbs, and I'm cooked. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like the crash is real for me. So I think it's really, I mean, just operating around that framework and eating foods that aren't
Whole Foods
processed and
is
know where it
always
came
really,
from.
really
And
great. So
yeah,
great advice. Great advice. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us on the Digital Health Heavyweights podcast. We're very excited to see, how Health Wallet continues to grow over the coming years, and we'll be cheering on and watching from afar. So thank you for joining.
thanks for having me.
All right, take care. Thank you for joining. Please like, comment, and subscribe below if you enjoyed it.